on. In last few lectures, we discussed about I/O devices. Like we discussed canonical device and how it works like a interface between the devices and the OS, right? Then we have seen how this communication between the operating system and the devices can be made more efficient by using the interrupts and by using DMA, right? Then we discussed about files and directories, then which are the different system calls can be used for the files and the directories. If you remember, we have taken the one example of ls command, how the ls command can be processed. So, of course, some different system calls can be used internally when we use the ls command, right? Then we also talked about the system calls which are used for the files, like the open system call. And of course, open system call is used for creating a file also and for opening a file also. Then we talked about the file descriptor also. What is the role of file descriptor, right? Open system calls returns the file descriptor, and the file descriptor act as a handler, right? Which is used for whatever the operations we perform on the file, right? That we discussed. Then we discussed about the hard links, soft links, right? Then in the last lecture, we discussed about the file systems also. So in the file systems, we discussed how the data blocks can be categorized into different sections. Like some of the data blocks we call as a data regions, some of the blocks we call as a inode region, bitmap, super block, right? Then we also discussed about the directory structure. Then we talked about the free space management, right? So how the space can be managed by using the bitmap blocks, right? That bitmap blocks are for inode also and for data blocks also, right? Which keeps the track of which are the data blocks and the inode blocks are free, and it maintains a list. Then we also discussed about the data structure for opening a file. Then we talked about the file descriptor and the inode number, what is the relation between them, and which are the data structures are used by the kernel. Like it uses the table like the global open file table and the per process open file table, right? So we discussed all these things in last few lectures. Okay, now we'll start with the next topic, that is the hard disk drives, right? So here we are going to discuss we'll start with the basic concepts of the HDD, and then we'll see the most important part we are going to see here, the scheduling algorithms, right? Disk scheduling algorithms. So here we are going to discuss about hard disk drives, then how hard disk drives help the operating system for taking some kind of decisions that we are going to see here, right? Like a hard disk. So we know that the main form, it's the main form of persistent data storage. Then it acts as an interface, like it is a set of 512 bytes block, also called as a sector. So generally the size is 512 bytes. That can be read or written atomically. So when we are saying atomically means what? You cannot read or write a part of a block. You must write a full block to the sector, right, or to the block. Here the block is nothing but the sector. Sometimes I can use the term as a block, or sometimes I may use the sector. You all must be knowing that what that disk contains, right? The disk is having the number of platters, then it is having the spindle, right? Then it has multiple tracks, multiple sectors, right? And of course the head is there, right? Read write head. So that structure also we are going to discuss here. So internally hard disk consists of one or more platters connected by a spindle. So of course any of the hard disks may have the number of platters, right? Each platter has a disk head and arm. Every platter, that platter is nothing but a disk which has two surfaces, right? And on both the surfaces we can read and write. And it has a head and the arm. A platter is divided into a into a multiple tracks, and each track into a 512 byte sector. So here we have taken the standard size as 512 byte. So of course that platter is nothing but a disk. The disk has the multiple sectors, so we can say thousands of sectors it has, and it is divided into thousands of tracks it may have, and it is divided into sectors. Then it's a basic geometry, like you can see in between. You can see it's a top view, and there's a spindle in the center, and this is the only one track is there. And in that one track, there are 12 sectors. So we are counting with 0, so there are 12 sectors are there. So you can have the thousands of track like this, right? So the platter is aluminum coated with a thin magnetic layer, a circular hard surface, so nothing but the disk we can say. Data is stored persistently by inducing magnetic changes to it, right? So how the data can be written on the display. So each platter has two sides, each of which is called a surface. So it has two surfaces, right? So just like a surface of a disk, right? So upper surface and the below surface you can say. And both the surfaces can be used for reading and writing. Now let's talk about the spindle. Spindle is connected to a motor that spins the platter around. So this spindle is connected with a motor, and with the help of that, the platter is moving, right? So rate of rotation is measured in RPM, that is rotations per minute. For example, we assume that this disk is moving in this direction. So typical modern values of the RPM are 7,200 to 15,000 RPM. And then we talk about the tracks, surface of a disc divided into a circular tracks. So of course, this disc may have the thousands of tracks, and that tracks are divided into the number of sectors. So that is the basic geometry, everybody is knowing it, right? So, so same thing is given here. The data is encoded on each surface of a track. So of course that tracks are there, and that tracks are having the number of sectors, right? And that sectors is nothing but the one block. A single surface contains the many thousands or the thousands of blocks, right? So simple disk if we say, so there's a head is there, right? Head is there, you can see there is a head. The disk head is there, you can see. So now the disk head is at 6, right? Disk head is at 6, and this is a track. So you can have the number of tracks like this, right? And the and just this is the basic diagram you can see. So these are the platters. This is platter, this is one platter, this is the another one, this is the another one, and here is the arm assembly you can see. And here you can see there is a spindle, right, which is rotating with the help of motor. And on a single platter you can see there can be the number of tracks or the thousands of tracks, and these tracks are divided into these sectors. And you can see this is nothing but the block, or you can call it as a sector, which is of size 512 bytes. Right? So whenever this block is read, so that time this head must be there, right? So whenever that block is accessed, that block is accessed with the help of that head. If this head is on this block, means that block is accessed, and this disk is rotating, right? So of course, might be if this block will be accessed, of course this disk has to rotate and it has to come under this head, and then only that block will be read out, right? Okay, so here, so what happens when the disk is assessing the sector? So we know that what will happen if the disk is assessing the sector. So this, I hope you all have got this basic structure, right? So here, just look at this. So this is the disk having the number of sectors. So you can see here, here sector number 1 is there, this is 2, this is 3. Or even you can see here, this is sector number 1, 2, and 3. And initially you can see the disk is here, right? Sorry, the head is here. This is the head, and the head is moving like this, from in to out, out to in, like this. In this way, this head is moving, right? So this is the arm. You can say this arm is moving like this, like inner to outer, outer to inner, like this, right? So when it moves like from inner sector to the outer sector, sorry, inner track to the outer track, can say inner track to the outer track. Now it is on the inner track. So it is in this track, it is on the block number 30, or you can say sector number 30. So it may move like this. So in that case, when it will move from 30 to this track, you can say this track, this is we can call it as track number 1. From track number 1 to track number 2. Then it can move from track number 2 to track number 3. So when it is moving from one track to the other, so of course it requires some time. It requires some time. Here you can see this head is moving from this track to this track, this track to this track. So it requires some time. So that time is nothing but the seek time. That time is called as the seek time. The same thing is given over here. Suppose this head is at 30. Now it is at 30 and it want to access 11. It want to access block number 11. These are the blocks we can say, or these are the sectors we can say, right? So seek to the correct track, wait for this to rotate. So of course, seeking is nothing but moving from one track to the other. So of course, the seeking time is nothing but the time which is required to reach to a particular track, right? So even when we are saying this, now track number 1, now head is at track number 1. When it want to access the block number 11, suppose the block number 11 is present at track number 3, right? This is track number 1, this is 2, and this is 3. So of course it requires some time. So to move from this track to this, as this you can see here, The head is moving from this to this, right? So it is called as a seek time. This is called as a seek time. But still, as we want to assess block number 11 and the disk is rotating like this, so it will wait when this block number 11 will come under this head. So of course you can see this line. This is the rotation as the disk is rotating in this direction, right? So of course when this disk is rotating in this direction and when this 11 will come here, so of course it requires some time to come under this head. So this is called as a rotational latency. This time is called as the rotational latency. Okay. So here, once seek is finished, it waits for sector 11 to come under the disk, right? So now here we only talked about the one request, that is 11. Initially, the disk was at head was at 30, and here we were talking about only there was one request, that is 11. But you may have the number of requests, right? So which request will be processed first? So it will be decided by using the disk scheduling algorithm. The same thing is given over here, that disk scheduling is in case of multiple input output requests, the disk scheduling algorithm must decide which request must be executed first, right? So here, for example, uh, sector number 10 or block number 10, it is also, there is a request 10, 10 is one of the requests, 12 is another request, 2 is another request, 32 is also another request. So which request will be processed first? So that will be decided by using some policy called as the disk schedule. Okay. Now the next is time taken. Time taken for IO operations. So here, just look at here. So as I told you about the seek time, right? So to get to the right track, it requires some time called as the seek time, and here we can say to a particular sector, to reach to a particular sector, it requires some time, also called as the rotational latency. So here we can see rotational latency for this to spin to the correct sector on the track. So here, as I told you, here rotational latency is nothing but, for example, your head is here and it is waiting for track number, it is waiting for sector number 11 and the disk is moving in this direction. So of course, then first the 10 will come under this head, then the 11 will come under this head. So it requires some time. So that is called as the rotational latency. So in general, we can see seek time requires few seconds, few milliseconds, and even rotational latency also requires a few milliseconds. Once this 11 will be under this head, then actual data transfer will be done, right? Might be a reading or a writing. Then actual the data transfer will be done. But for data transfer also it requires some time. But as compared to seek time and the rotational latency, for transferring the data, it requires very less time. The same thing is given over here. Transfer time to read sector. So few tens microseconds, right? So just you can observe here, seek time requires few milliseconds, rotational latency requires few milliseconds, but transfer time to read the sector or transferring of the data when actually that block is under that head. So then only the data transfer is possible, and for that data transfer it requires very less time, right? So usually rate of sequential access is greater than the rate of random access. What exactly it means? Like of course we know that if we are assessing the blocks which are nearer to head, so of course it requires, or we can assess the more blocks, right? We can assess the more blocks, and if we want to assess the blocks, right? For example, if you want to assess 30 initially, then if you want to assess 9, then if I want to assess 1, again if I want to assess 32, and then I want to assess 15. So of course it has to move to 9, then 12, might be 32, and then 15, right? So you can see the random access is there, and every time the head has to move that particular block. So of course it requires the more time than the sequential access. But if I want to assess the blocks or the records, I can say like the 30, 31, 32, 33, might be 20, 21, 22, 23, like the sequential access is there. So of course it requires less time for the access, right? So here just a small example is given. So two types of these examples are given here. If it is a random access, it requires 0.6 MB per second, and if you are using the sequential access, it requires 125 MB per second. So that is a huge difference you can see here. Here also you can see in this type of discuss, so you can see the huge difference. For the random access 0.31 MB per second, and if you are using the sequential, it requires 105 MB per second, right? So this can be done. So of course, in all kind of disk scheduling algorithms, we are going to optimize the disk access by using the sequential access, right? So here in the disk scheduling, we are going to see different kinds of disk scheduling algorithms here. So like requests to disk are not served in first out. So of course we first in first out is one kind of disk scheduling algorithm. We can say the FIFO strategy is there, which uses the FIFO strategy, which is not also the optimal one, because might be whatever the sequences it has used, like in the previous example we have seen. Here might be it is accessing 31, then the request is of 10, then the request is of 12, and we are serving the request, and the disk is serving the request as per the arrival. So you can see there is a random access is there, or the randomly disk has to move, or it is not in a sequence. Suppose the lots of moves are there, right? So of course it takes time for processing, right? Then the same thing is there. So who does scheduling? So as I told you, OS does not know internal geometry of disk. So scheduling done mostly by disk controller. So there is a small CPU we can say called as a disk controller. So OS generally do not know much about the scheduling algorithm, and all the parts of this disk scheduling is done by this disk controller, right? Now just see here which are the different algorithms we are going to see here. As per your syllabus, we are going to see the first come first serve, of course, which uses the FIFO strategy. Then shortest seek time first, that is the second algorithm. Then the scan is there, C scan is there, and the last one is shortest positioning time first. So some of the students was having some query like which was given in the assignment, like SSTF and SPTF is same or not. No, both the algorithms are different, right? It uses the rotational latency, but does not uses the rotational latency. That is actually the difference. Even in some of the books, you might have seen loop and see loop also, but as it is not in a syllabus, that's why I have not mentioned. But when we discuss the scan and C scan, I'll also talk about the look and see look. Okay. Okay. So we'll talk about the first algorithm, that is FCFS, that is first come first serve. So here that is a simple disk scheduling algorithm. So requests are processed in the order of their arrival, as the name says, first come first serve. Whatever the request may be, whatever the disk blocks access is requested, that will be processed first, right? Here in this you can see like the tracks are numbered from 0 to 199, right? The tracks are numbered from 0 to 199. So you can see these are the tracks, like this is the track 1, and you will have the another track 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like this up to 199, right, for this example. And this is the sequence for the request. So first 176, the first request is of 176, right? Block number 176, nothing but a sector number 176. Then there is a request of 79, which is inner side. Again 34, which is again inner side. Then 64, 92. You can see 11 is the innermost is there, and the 176 is the outermost, right? Request. So these are the tracks from 0 to 199, like this, right? And these are the request sequence. And here by using the first come first serve, all the requests will be assessed as per their sequence. And it is also given in the example the initial head position. So initial head position is given. The head, this is the arm and this is the head. The head is initially at block number 50, or you can say sector number 50, right? So of course when the request of 176 will come, means it has to go from 50 to 176, right? When the next request is of 76, then it has to go from 176 to 79. So next request is of 34. So of course it has to go from 79 to 34. So it is not going to see, it is not going to see which requests are nearer to the head and all. Because what the algorithm says, the request will be processed as per their arrival order, right? So just look at this example. Request will be satisfied in this order. Like in this, initially the head is at 50. The first request is of 176. So this request will be assessed. See, The head is moving from track number 50 to 176. These are the tracks, right? This is the zero track initially. This is, for example, track number 11, somewhere here, right? Then 34, 41, like this, right? Up to 199. So you can see from 50 to 176. So it is moving from, head is moving from track number 50 to 176. So this is what? This is what? This is a sick time, right? Let me know. This is a sick time. So it requires how much sick time? 176 minus 50. So same thing is given written over here. 176 minus 50. This is the total sick time required to assess this block, right? The next block is of 76. So you can see 76 is here. So of course, when the head will move from 176 to 79, also requires, or it need to, head will be moving from this to this. It is traversing that many of tracks, right? So again, this is the sick time which is required to traverse from 176 to 79. So similarly, you can see that's why it is there, written here 176 minus 79. Similarly, the third one is 34. So of course 34, so initially it was at 79, then 79 minus 34, right? Then 60, it is at 60, then 92, 11, then 41 and 114. So in this way, you can calculate the total sick count. So total sick count, if you calculate the difference between all this, or you can see the how many time this head is moving from one sector to one location to the other, right? Or one track to the other, right? One track to the other track. So which gives you the sick time. So if you observe here, we are only concentrating on the sick time, right? We're not talking about the rotational latency here, right? So here it is 510 in this example, right? So similarly, what can be the advantages and disadvantages of this? So of course, the advantages will be, it's a simple. So of course, there is no starvation, right? So as per the arrival, the requests are processed, right? Can anybody tell, will there be any conway effect? If you remember, what we learned in the scheduling, is there any conway effect? Anybody can tell? Okay. So of course, the conway effect will be there. It can be used with less load. So if there are only 2 or 3 requests are there, so that time we can use the FCFS. And of course, the disadvantages will be requires more sick time. So of course, because you can see what might be the request is at track number 1, or might be the second request is at track number 199, might be the third one is at 3. So of course, the head has to move, or head has to move from 1 to 199, 199 from 199 to 3. Of course, the lots of movements you can see, right? So it requires a lots of sick time. Sick time is more. More waiting and the response time. Of course, the waiting time, because of the sick time, the more waiting time and the response time. And of course, we can say that's why it is an inefficient method, right? So what can be done if we satisfy the requests which are nearer to the head, then there will be the less sick time. Can we say if if we can arrange these things, like if you talk with this, if you talk about this same example, like when we were at 50, which is nearer to 50, which is the other node, or which is the other request which is nearer to 50. For example, in this nearer to 50 is 41, for example. So we can satisfy the 41 before the 176, right? That logic can be applied. Yes. So with the same concept, there is another algorithm we can say which satisfy, or which entertain the nearer request of the head. So that is the next algorithm called as the shortest sick time first. So before starting with this, just note down one more example of first come first serve. Just you can note down this example and you can solve it later. Just note down this example. Okay. And then we'll see the another type of disk scheduling, that is the shortest sick time first. So in this, as I told you earlier, the basic idea is track which are the closer to current disk head position, should be serviced first in order to minimize the seek operation. Suppose we want to minimize the seek operation here, so that, for example, whatever the requests are nearer to the head, those requests will be satisfied first, right? And then the requests which are longer distance at the head from the head will be entertained later, right? So that is the concept. So just look at here, here initially your head is at sector number 30, and there are two requests, 21 and 2, 21 and 2. So of course, according to the shortest seek time first, which request will be entertained first, or which request will be served first. So of course, if you see, the 21 is at track number 2, 30 is at track number 1, 21 is at track number 2, and here 2 is at track number 3. So of course, to move this head from this track to this track, of course, this head will reach to track number 1, right? And then to track number 2. So of course, this distance is smaller. Suppose in this case, by using the concept of shortest seek time first, it will entertain, or it will process the request of 21, and then it will process request 2, right? The same thing is written over here, right? Assuming the current position of the head is over the inner track, that is on 30, and we request for sector 21 and 2. So what will happen? SS block that we can stick to fastest. So of course, the fastest block will be 21, as it is available at track 1, right? So what is the problem with this? What can be the problem? Anyone? So of course, the problem is here the problem is of starvation. Here the problem is of starvation, right? Because some requests that are far from correct position of head may never get served. So it may happen that we'll get all runtime requests, and all the runtime requests are nearer to the blocks of that head, right? Suppose the requests which are at the blocks which are far from the head, they will not get a chance, right? They will not get a chance to serve. So starvation is the major problem in this, right? So just look at the example. This is the request sequence. Like, this is the sequence. In this sequence, all the requests are there, and the initial head position is at 50. So just look at it, how it will be processed. So of course, initially the head is at 50. The first request is at 176. Suppose, but the 176 will not be processed. It will find out the requests which are nearer to 50, because the current position of the head is at 50, and as it wants to do the less movement, right? It want to do the movement with the less seek time, we can say, right? So it will find out the blocks which are nearer to the head, and that blocks will be assessed first. So in this case, it will find 41 is more nearer as compared to the other, right? 41 is more nearer to the 50, so 41 will be assessed first, and then of course, then you can see the 34 is more nearer. So that's why the 34 will be assessed next. Then 11 will be assessed. Then 60 will be assessed. Then after 60, you can see 79 will be assessed. Then 92, 114, and 176. Right? But what will happen if you may have a request, or you may have a two blocks which are nearer, or which are at the same distance from the head? Might be you are having a situation like, currently your head is here, right? Your head is at block number 60, and you have two requests, which is like the first request, you can have like the request at block 55 and 65, right? Are you getting? Yes, are you getting? Your head is here at 60, and you are having two requests, right? Which are of same distance, right? So at 55 one request, and at 65 another request. So that time, which request will be processed? Because both the requests are of at the same distance, of distance 5, right? 60 minus 5, that is 55. 65 minus 5, that is 65 minus 60, that is 5. So in that case, what will happen? It will just check the direction of a head. As you can see, the direction of a head is from left to right, right? The direction of a head is from left to right, so it will serve the request 65. Because again, for changing the direction of a head, it requires some time, right? So instead of changing the direction of a head, it will serve the requests which are in the same direction. That's why after 60, instead of serving block number 55, it will serve block number 65. Clear? It's okay. So in this case, if you see, like 50 minus 41, so we have calculated the sick time as we have calculated in the earlier example. 50 minus 41, so of course you'll get sick time here, right? From 41 to 34 you'll get some sick time here. So you can observe here the sick time is less as compared to the previous one, right? So this point just I talked about, right? Tie is broken using the direction of the head movement. As I given you this example, if the head is at 60 and you have two requests of 65 and 55, so 65 request of block number 65 will be served first, because the direction of the head is from left to right. The head is moving in right direction. That's why the 65 request of block number 65 will be served instead of 55, even if both the blocks are at the same distance. Okay, because changing the direction also requires some time. Then just we'll discuss the advantages and the disadvantages of this SSTF. Like that, what can be the advantages of it? Of course, the advantages is efficient sick moves. As you can see in the first example, first come first serve. So of course you can find the seek time is very less as compared to the first come first serve, right? So we can say as compared to first come first serve, it has efficient in sick movement, right? Less average response time and waiting time. Of course, the response time and the waiting time of the blocks is very less, because as it is assessing the blocks which are nearer to the head, so it requires very less time for the movement, right? And it can, in very less time, it can assess more blocks as compared to first come first serve, right? Then increased throughput. Of course, the number of requests will be uh, number of requests assessed will be more, so you can say the process requests per unit time are more. Then what can be the disadvantages? The disadvantages is the, of course, the overhead to find out the closest request. Of course, the head is going to entertain the requests which are nearer to the head. So of course it has to calculate which is nearer, which is far. So of course it requires some kind of overheads. We can say that is one kind of disadvantage. And most important disadvantage is the starvation, right? So requests which are far from head will stop. It may happen that the head is entertaining the requests which are nearer to the head, right? It is serving all the requests which are nearer to the head, and number of online or the runtime requests are coming and which are nearer to the head. But in that case, what will happen? Some of the requests, some of the blocks which we want to access, some of the processes want to access, which are far from the head, that will keep in the waiting state, waiting and waiting. So that is the situation like starvation, right? So it may happen that number of requests are coming runtime, and many of the requests out of it are nearer to the head, and so all the requests will be accessed, and the most of the many of the requests are keep waiting, right? Then one more disadvantage is that high variance in response time and waiting time. So here high variance means what? For some requests waiting time is more, and but for some requests waiting time is less. As I told you, the head will entertain the requests which are nearer to the heads. Of course, for those for those blocks, the disk access time or the response time is very less, and some of the blocks which are far from the head, it requires or it has a lot of waiting time, right? So you can see there is a high variance is there, a lot of difference is there between the waiting time, right? Some of the request waiting time is more, and some of the waiting request waiting time is very less, right? So that high variance should not be there. So the concept here is that to for any kind of algorithm we should know the worst case time, right? You know it, right? For any kind of algorithm we should know what can be the worst case time for this. But in this case it is very much difficult to find the worst case time, as the number of requests may come runtime, and we need to or it has to, or disk is entertaining all those requests as it is nearer to the head, keeping all the requests which are far from the head waiting, right? So this is all about SSTF. Okay, the next algorithm called as the elevator and the scan algorithm. So that we'll discuss in the next lecture. So I hope all have given the attendance. Please give your attendance in the chat box.